I am filming this video today on Super Bowl Sunday, but the game has not started yet. So I'm going to say go Hawks while I still can, because I have no idea if they're going to win or not. I am not a football person, and I'm going to link you in the description to my newsletter that just went out a few minutes ago, and it will tell you how little of a football person I am. But you might find some other things interesting in there. Anyway, football Sunday is over and Valentine's Day is coming. So I'm wearing my Valentine sweatshirt. And today I want to talk about Valentine's perspective on candy. And it doesn't really mean my perspective on eating candy because I am always pro snacks, whatever they are. But today I'm going to show you some photographs of some candy jars in different perspectives, and we're going to analyze them. Then I'm going to draw one and give you the freebie. It was like a little quick, super fast drawing. But if you still need a Valentine, you will be able to get one. So let's get started. This candy in perspective teaching has come to you via football because since it was football Sunday, I decided to draw a football. And if you just draw a straight on view from the side with no perspective in it, then sure, you could make a football look like a football. This one is just on its side and your horizon level's around the middle. But if you change the perspective a little bit, turn the football at a different angle, get a little higher or a little lower, depending on what angle you're looking at it, then you can get some footballs that look very different in space because things get smaller as they get closer to you and larger as they go away. That's called foreshortening. And for each one of these, I showed you different perspectives. There's, one that shows you at the top view, like looking down on a football, one that's looking kind of right here at the middle. And you can see that it gets smaller if you look at the box and the way the box works. We'll talk about that with the jar. And, you just get a really different, strong sense of foreshortening, or this one where you're looking from up above. You're getting a bigger view of the top of it than you are of the side of it. But with weird shaped objects like that, perspective can be hard. Just putting them in a box can really help. Just know that like the middle of the football is always going to be in the middle of the rectangle on the front end of it. So, if you've got an object that has a size indicator like that or a placement indicator, that can really be helpful. I found these photos on Unsplash, and Markus, God bless him, took the same photo basically from a bunch of different perspectives. So it makes for a great analysis of how you look at an object and see what the perspective is. So on this first one, it's just a straight up side view of a jar in the same way that the football was a side view. You don't see the top, you don't see the bottom, there's no angles to anything, it's just a basic box. But when you turn it on its side and you're looking at it from overhead, you see something very different. So if you have two sides to something, and you do when you have a jar, you can draw the two lines on either end and then start to figure out what's going on with the rest of it. I switched over to a pink pen so you can see the shape of that oval. It's narrow, even though we know in our heads that the jar is round. But it's narrow because of perspective. So it's, taking that jar and turning it on its side, but not completely on its side. Because you could have an angle where you don't see any of the top of the jar, but here we see some of it. So it's going to be a really skinny panel at the front of that particular jar, that box that's at the front of it. And we don't see anything from the left and right side of it. So, the candy, if you have candies that are in perspective, they will have the same-ish perspective as the jar. I'm not going to deal with the candies today because they're just round ones. So we'll just leave them simple for that reason. So let's look at one that's got a side perspective. This one, the jar has a little angle going from the left to the right. If my pen would cooperate, which it's not. And then the back goes up just a little bit. So it might be something you're used to seeing in perspective when things go back in space and get bigger in the front, smaller in the back. And then in general, you should be able to do a vertical on the vertical sides, those, unless there's 3-point perspective, the verticals should always be vertical. And so I'll put one on the back, but then the front side, I'm just going to make flat. We have no reference for whether there's any perspective on that or not necessarily. I mean, I have some hints at it, but we're not going to deal with that. We're going to keep it kind of simple for the moment. But our point of view is at the center, so we're not seeing the top or the bottom of the box at all. So we don't see the top or the bottom of the jar. But in this one, it's a little bit different. So we have a steeper angle than we did in the second picture. And it's got more of the candy jar opening showing like it did on the one on the left. But this one, it's not going to be a perfect circle, just like the one on the left is not quite a perfect circle, but it's going to fit into a box. And I'm going to show you in the next phase of this lesson what I mean by that. So here I'm drawing a box for the front. That left is probably over way too far. Just so you know, I was just kind of throwing lines on with my marker while I was doing this. But if your jar came out further, then that would be right. But my jar stops short, so we'd have some room in if this was a glass box with my jar in it. But when you're looking at any kind of a object like this, you can start to try to pencil in what you think some of those shapes are. So here is what it might look like if my jar came all the way to the front. That front circle would fill, if it was a glass and didn't get smaller at the top like the jar does, it would actually fill the entire thing. But since it's smaller than the width of the jar, then sometimes it will be smaller than the front of that box. So it really depends on whether your object has another thing in it. And you'll see more about that in a few minutes that will hopefully make that clearer. But just remember that the angles, the curves of any circles that are at the front of an object, a cylinder or something like this, will be the same as the ones at the back. They'll just be different sizes. I'm going to show you a few sketches based on, like, if you were making something up out of your head and trying to figure out what the perspective would be on an object like a cup. You would, draw the front of the box and fill it with whatever is at the front edge of whatever you're drawing. And in this case, it's going to be a cup. We're not going to do the jar because the jar has, as I mentioned, a smaller opening on it than it does a body of the jar. And that gets a little confusing. But I just wanted to show you this to get you kind of thinking about how to even draw a box around something, how to draw a box in itself at all. You just do two boxes, one that is smaller and one that's bigger. Now, if your object is not perfectly round or perfectly square, then the box would be a rectangle. So if it was, a violin in a box, it would not be a square box. You would have to make it violin sized. But just make, two different boxes, one smaller than the other, and they can overlap or they can have some distance in between them. And you can just sit and do a page of these and start making boxes for yourself. They're kind of fun and relaxing in some ways. But we're going to be doing a cup instead of the jar because a cup is going to be easier to explain the concept with because, it's got two openings and it doesn't have the little neck on it. But this one is also going to have a smaller bottom on it than it has top. So we'll be able to see some things about these boxes. So now I'm just going to connect the corners of each of these pairs of boxes and look how they turn into a three-dimensional box. These are not perfect. I'm not looking for perfection here. I didn't get out rulers. I didn't get out, any special tools or anything. I'm just eyeballing it. And generally when I draw, I don't get tools out either. Unless it's something that I really need everything to be perfectly square, etc. But notice that each one of these boxes can be looked at as though it's facing one direction or the other, like a little optical illusion. And I'll show you what I mean by that in just a couple minutes. But I'm going to start by drawing the glass into each of these boxes. In this one, if this is the front panel, then the wide open end of the glass, the part you drink out of, is in the front. It's going to fill that square, which is why it has to be square in order for it to be round. Mine is not quite round because I'm hand doing it, But if the bottom of the glass were the same size as the top, then it would fully fill the box at the back. And this time it's not going to. It's going to be a little smaller because that circle is smaller than the circle on the front of the glass. And while that is not well drawn, I'm going to doodle in like the rest of what that circle would be. So you can kind of get an idea. That's what it looks like. It's the glass facing us open. Here again, the glass is facing us open. And we fill that circle, and then we make a smaller one in the back one. And the two sides will then just join. So that one is at a different angle. We see more of the top of that box. So we're looking at it from higher up and that sort of thing. So the placement of each of the boxes can really make a big difference. And the size of the boxes too, because if they're really small in the back, you're going to get more foreshortening, that kind of steep and dramatic kind of look. So here again, this glass fits in there with the bottom portion of the glass on the back panel being smaller than the size of the panel. Now this one, let's put the front of the glass in the big square and the back of the glass in the small one. And suddenly this one flips up. And it's because we put the smaller box at the bottom. And if you just draw a whole series of boxes, different placements and different distances from each other, you'll see that happen. And I'm going to do the same thing here with the smaller box in the bottom right corner. But instead of that being the back of the picture, this is going to be the front of the picture. And the bigger box of the two is going to be on the back side, which means this is going to look like the bottom of a cup, as if your solo cup fell over. And anybody who's at Super Bowl parties probably is very familiar with solo cups this weekend. So perspective can do all kinds of crazy things. And if you get stuck on perspective on whatever you're trying to draw, feel free to send me a sketch anytime. I'd be happy to look at it and see if there's something that I notice that could help you in getting the drawing to look better. So I'm going to do a really quick study here and make it into a black and white piece that I can then color by making two boxes first. And this is like basically made up out of my head with the photos that I was looking at as a general reference, a general idea of what I wanted to do. So I would start by making the box, and the sides of the jar are the widest portion. That's going to fill the whole box at the front and the whole box at the back. And so I'll get those circles in there. I can join those two, and then we have the cylinder that is the main part of the jar. And it should be roughly in perspective with what else we do here. Well, how do you get the front of it, that little neck at the front? How do you get that in the right perspective? And how do you know where to place it? Because it's not going to be right in the center of that thing we've already drawn. It has to be out further. So I'm going to extend the box closer to me. And you can make several extensions in there, just draw several boxes. If you want to mark where those rings start on that neck of the bottle and where the very top of it is, you can make different levels in there. I don't find that to be real helpful to me, but if you're drawing something you really want to be technical and all that, there's a whole lot more information out there that you can start working from to develop that. And if anybody's really that interested in that nerdy about making perspective drawings, please let me know. I could always offer a class or a Zoom tutorial or something. Don't know how many people on YouTube care that much. But the front of this is at the front box now. The smaller circle is at the front end, so that when I extended that box toward me a little bit, the whole thing got longer. Now the whole jar got longer, so it's much taller than the jar that was in the picture. But since I'm making this up out of my head, it doesn't really matter a whole lot. So I'm using a brush pen that is alcohol marker friendly. This one is by Copic, and if you've seen some of theirs, they are typically a darker gray body. This one is supposed to be re-inkable, and you can replace nibs on it. It's an SP marker, but I've never had to replace mine, so I have no idea how hard or easy that is. But you can see here now, I've got a bottle that looks generally in perspective. It's, like I said, drawn super fast and with a brush marker, so it's not going to be perfect, but I just wanted something really quick to illustrate for you how you could get the front end of that jar to look right. Now, when you're drawing the candies on the table, they showed in the picture just these round candies. You can do little boxes. If you were to draw those hearts, those little candy hearts that have words on them, you could draw boxes for each one and get them to be in perspective too. And that's a whole other thing to even think about. So we're not going to go there. We're just going to leave them being the little jelly bean type candies. And when you make candies in perspective like this, the one thing to remember is that anything that's behind something else is going to indicate that it's behind it by the base of it being higher. So if the base is lower, then it's going to look like you have candy that's floating in the air. So you need to have the bottoms of the two of them. The one that's in the back is going to be higher up generally, depending on the perspective, of course, but that's what I'm kind of indicating here. In the jar itself, I didn't want to draw out every single one of those jelly beans or whatever kind of candies they are. So I started indicating with heavier lines on the right-hand side. That helps with, indicating where the light's coming from, because I'm using the same lighting they had in the pictures, which was from the upper left. And then I'll let the marker work, the color work, handle all the rest of the division of all of those little jelly bean things. So I'm going to erase the lines and then just do a quick coloring of it, just to show you how fast you can get this done. Do not labor over it, especially when it's a loose sketch like this. This is not like a very tight drawing, so I'm not even worrying about it at all. I'm just going to swatch in some color, kind of. These are Olo markers, and if you are an Olo user, I will be working on, eventually, an updated hex chart with their new colors in it. I have not yet because I don't have all the new colors, and I found that if I know there's more new colors coming, it does not make any sense for me to start it, only to have one color disrupt it when it arrives. So I am waiting for them to get more of stuff in. There's another video here on the channel about Olo markers, and you can hear more about them in that, because I did do a swatching of the colors that I do have and talked about it a little bit more. So I've put in just blobs of color for each one of the jelly beans. I'm swatching in just a little tiny bit of a shadow underneath of them, colored in the tag, and put in a little bit of color around the neck of the glass, because you usually see some reflected color. And I threw in some dark on one side, just a few stripes of it. I was like, I'm not sure that was the best idea. So you can decide if you want to do that or not. And then I have these acrylic dual tip markers. They're like kids markers. And I was thinking of trying like a real drawing with these kids markers to see what I could do. Put in a little highlight here with the white. And they don't seem like great pens, but if you would like me to try to see what I could do with them, I probably could find my way to making a drawing with these weird acrylic markers. Kids stuff is kind of fun. Before I added color to this, I did take a quick scan of the artwork itself for the drawing. So if you want this little doodle, if you print it out really small, it'll be fine on a Valentine card. So yeah, it's free for you. The link to the freebie is in the doobly-doo down below. It's on art-classes.com, which is my website where I teach, and you can go there as well. Put something in your cart that you want a discount on, because this weekend, Valentine's weekend, I am having a sale on classes. So you'll be able to get a percentage off by using the coupon code that is posted on the sale page that day. And don't worry, there's going to be a link like at the bottom of the page for everybody who goes that weekend so that you won't miss the sale. But I would love to have you in one of my classes. There's lots of drawing classes and more over there. I think I'm at like 180-ish classes now, which is a little insane, but you can get some more in-depth learning there, because here on YouTube, the website doesn't show you things in order. And in classes, I can teach you one thing and then we build on that skill for the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. So classes make a little bit more sense and help you grow faster than random videos shown to you by the algorithm. So thank you very much. I hope you have a great Valentine's weekend, and I will see you next Tuesday with some fresh creativity. See you then. Bye.